Welcome to the Front Four Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Marchese. Alongside me, as always, Jeff Azzapardi. He's a little under the weather this week, so we're going to be a little patient with Jeff.
Non-COVID related
illness.
Traveled with the team, still here, trying to get in. But a game time decision,
yeah. And for those wondering, yes, this is a mustache on my face. And yes, I'm not doing it just for attention. I'm actually trying to raise money. So I just haven't posted it yet, but I am.
He does a lot of other things for attention, people. Yeah, the mustache is not one of it. I can confirm he does it every year. So
and not for anything. The other things that I do try and get attention for doesn't work. So
anyways, go check out his Twitter. I'm sure you have a link up there, right?
I haven't posted it yet. I got to post it today. Let's go. It's been busy. It's been busy.
4 days into November, and look how much that thing's going on already.
I know. It's busy. Oh, by the way, Twitter.
You guys will hate him more than normal by the end of the month when you really see what it becomes.
Pretty much.
It's always the handlebars too.
I might trim it to go a little smaller as it gets a little thicker, and we'll see how that goes. Yeah. Twitter handles. You can follow us on Twitter at MattyMar89, at J_Party, at front4 fantasy. Let's get right into it. So one of the big storylines coming out of week 8. I can't
the backup quarterback week, where it's like every backup quarterback that got in won games that they probably shouldn't have won. Anyways.
Yeah. So one of those guys that came in was Trevor Siemian, because Jameis Winston tore his ACL. Now, what we're hearing is it sounds like Taysom
beat the
Hill
Bucs. Add that. You got to add that they beat the Bucs.
They did beat the Bucs. The defense is really good. Trevor Siemian somehow anyway. It looks like Taysom Hill is going to be the guy that starts. If it's not this weekend, it's probably the following weekend. But when we talk about Taysom Hill, we know what he does. We know that he runs the ball. He's a better thrower of the ball than I thought he was going to be. He's still not that great, but he's certainly better than Tim Tebow. And the question is what do we do with Alvin Kamara with Taysom Hill and now Mark Ingram there? Because they clearly trust Mark Ingram more than they trusted Tony Jones Jr. And he's going to get some looks. So just to kind of give our listeners and viewers a sense of what Alvin Kamara did when Taysom Hill started 4 games last year, it was games of 13 carries, 11 carries, 15 carries, and 11 carries. So that part is fine. Alvin Kamara has been getting more rushing work than that this season, but this is where
even before he went in last year, right, Matty? He had more rushes before that. Like, those numbers are fine for a given running back, but it was a bit of a drop in the carries Kamara was getting last year.
Exactly. And this is where the concern was. He had 1 target, 2 targets, 3 targets, and 10 targets in the 4 games that he started. The 10 targets seems like an outlier in that whole conversation.
Do you have the numbers up there? Can I add maybe another issue? How many touchdowns did he have in those games?
I can pull it up. I don't think he had very many. I actually had his numbers up.
Your boy Taysom did what you love. He did the little vulture moves usually when they were inside the 10 or even in the red zone, where he would scramble, and he would a lot of the time take those rushing touchdowns away from Kamara. That 100%. Was going to be my point. That's it. But we saw Taysom do that a lot, and that's why Kamara, never mind the rushes or the targets, like his fantasy numbers overall were down once Taysom got in.
So he was RB11 in those 4 weeks, and that's not Alvin Kamara. Like that, it's really not Alvin Kamara. So in those weeks, Alvin Kamara had 2 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns in 4 weeks, 3 touchdowns in 4 weeks. So it wasn't actually
it's not bad. Yeah, it's not okay. Bad. I thought it was worse. But if you look at Taysom, I bet you he had as many touchdowns, if not more, which typically might go to Kamara, right?
So this is the other point that we should make here, is that Alvin Kamara is a guy that is absolutely a beast when he's running the ball. But the big thing is how he's used it in the passing game. You know, when some backup quarterbacks go in, the offense doesn't change.
Right.
When Taysom Hill goes in, he's so much different than Jameis Winston. He's so much different than Drew Brees was. The offense changes dramatically. It's a lot more of Taysom Hill, which is why if Taysom Hill's starting, I'm starting Taysom Hill. I'm actually starting him this week if he's playing,
Okay, let me ask you a question, Matty, because he has been in concussion protocol. It's taken him a little bit to get through it and get past it, right? Like, he's still not fully cleared yet. We expect him to be. This was when they were aiming for his return. But given that he's just coming off a concussion, do you see them maybe dialing back a bit more on his rushing and not letting him, and maybe hands off the ball a bit more? Like you said, given that they've got like Mark Ingram there besides Kamara.
This is a team that was fined heavily for Bountygate. So I'm going to think that they're just going to run him out there. It's a good point that you bring up.
And the other thing is, like, as much as Taysom could worry about that, once you're on the field, your instincts kick in. We've seen what kind of—
You don't even think about it.
You don't think about it. You just react, and you play the type of football that you play. So, yeah, in that sense, I expect Taysom Hill to just go back to doing what he's doing, and they wouldn't put him out there if he was in any real danger. So, I'm with you on this. The
point of this is that it's— yes, you're off. Like, nobody's saying you're not starting Alvin Kamara. That's a given.
You have
to. But you need to temper expectations, like you do. As my
his numbers might
get noise over here.
Yeah, for sure. Without a doubt.
You need to just temper expectations. The proof is in the pudding. He was RB11 in those 4 weeks that Taysom Hill started last year. So the other thing is Latavius Murray was RB23 in that time. So it's not only that you have to worry about Taysom Hill, but you might have to worry at least a little bit about Mark Ingram. And again, Mark Ingram is older, and Mark Ingram has a lot of miles on him. But at the end of the day—
he looked pretty good last week. A couple of the runs he had were like his old self. And sometimes even just, I mean, come on, he went from Houston to New Orleans. Like, that's got to rejuvenate you a bit, right? Like,
yeah. What I'm saying is Mark Ingram's not dead.
Right.
So you have to— temper expectations for Alvin Kamara, because Taysom Hill could be the starter the rest of the way here. Like, Jameis Winston's not coming back. And the only way that I believe that Taysom Hill loses that job is by performance.
Oh, without a doubt. Well, yeah, again, Simeon performed well. So maybe if he struggles a bit, again, just coming off a few weeks off, maybe they turn back. Or, I mean, Sean Payton sometimes does like the gimmick
weird
plays.
stuff.
Uses Taysom in some weird ways. So, I mean, yeah, I'm not sure what we can really like bank on at this point.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, man, like, we heard Michael Thomas isn't coming back, right?
Yeah, that's
what do they do with some of those? It's just what a mess of a year for him. Could that factor in as well? I mean, they like to get a ton of different receivers. So I'm with you. You got to temper expectations and maybe expect a little drop in some of those numbers if Taysom Hill's at quarterback.
For sure. Okay, let's move on to a couple. So we're doing a lot of kind of— 3 of our topics are this guy versus that guy, but they work, or at least in my mind, they work. So these are 2 rookie running backs, 2 guys. One was drafted, Michael Carter was drafted later. I believe he was a 4th round pick, and Javonte Williams was a 3rd round pick. Javonte Williams is, in my opinion, the better running back, but Michael Carter, especially over the last 4 weeks, has been
especially
dynamite. Yeah. So the last 3 weeks, the Jets played 2 games because they had to bye. Michael Carter is RB2 in points per game in those 3 weeks, behind only Alvin Kamara. Even if we go back to points per game since week 5, he's at RB6. Javonte Williams is nowhere near that. So here's where we have the Jets are going to run through Michael Carter and probably Ty Johnson as well, because they have nobody to throw the ball to. Elijah Moore hasn't panned out like we thought he would, although there's still time. Jamison Crowder is just a guy. Corey Davis has been hurt. And then after that, like, who else do they have?
But here's the big thing for me, Matty, because what's made the biggest difference in those 2 weeks for especially last week for Michael Carter, especially last week with White in as quarterback, is the drop-off passes to him. Like, they weren't do that to start the year. Like, with Zach Wilson in, he was looking downfield for, like you said, they don't have receivers, but he was still looking to hit them, right? And now, like, seeing the success they have with those little dump-off passes to Michael Carter, does even Zach Wilson learn from that and say, hey, look how successful this is. Maybe I should be doing this more, and just do that more as well. And like you on Javonte Williams, I think he is the better running back, but I just keep waiting for Denver to like integrate him more into the offense. And I was thinking maybe if they traded Melvin Gordon, like, you would see a big step up. And like I said, like he's had certain runs and certain weeks where he's looked really well. And I'm like, next week's the week. Next week will be the breakout week. But they just don't integrate him now. So I don't even know what Denver's really thinking. But out of the two of them, I see Michael Carter being a bigger part of the offense moving forward, just given the recent success.
At the end of the day, this comes down to coaching, Jeff. Like it's Zach Wilson throws the ball deep because it's not scripted for him to give the ball off to his
just
running
dump
back.
off like that for sure.
Which is like with a rookie quarterback, you should be running wide receiver screens. You should be running back screens. You should be running screens all day and just give them the confidence just to get the ball out of his hands.
Especially with a young, powerful back like that. Without a doubt.
So with these two guys, I agree with you. Michael Carter is, unless if there is a Melvin Gordon injury, it is wheels up Javonte Williams. He's so dynamic.
But I've still been waiting for him to step up and be that number one running back in that offense and in that team. And they won't let him. It's crazy. And
it's not his fault because
it's not his fault at all.
2 weeks ago, he had that really, who the heck were they playing? I can't even remember.
Yeah,
and he had a really good game.
Yeah,
and everybody's like,
great.
this is it.
This is it. This is going to be the turning point.
And nothing happened. So I'm with you. The Jets also really suck. So they're going to be having to throw the ball a lot. I think
it was Oakland that game, just looking at their schedule.
Yes,
it was a game against Oakland.
It was. And, that's why I kind of look at like just the way the Jets are going to have to play the rest of the year. The Broncos defense is at least good enough that they're going to stay in games.
Well, and they got the receivers, right? Like Teddy will always be trying to go. Like Judy just got back. They got Courtland Sutton. Like they're gonna still go to their receivers enough. Like you said, the Jets don't have that luxury. They don't, and now they don't. And now they have a backup quarterback or a backup's backup quarterback. Like coming in, right?
And I agree with you on. I agree with you on the Broncos pass catchers. Like they just have the ability to throw the ball
and make
to their receivers and tight ends more. Like, Fance, I don't think he's playing this week because he's on the COVID list. Albert O, I don't even know how to say his name, but that's another guy. They just keep rolling out these guys that can make plays. The Jets just don't have that. So Michael Carter, unless there's an injury to Melvin Gordon, Michael Carter is absolutely.
Here's my follow-up question, Maddie. Do you think the Jets could maybe look at incorporating a two-back system like with Ty Johnson? Like I know he gets involved later in the game in the passing, but I wonder if they try and go that route because they have two strong backs and they're both young and, like I said, powerful. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they start trying to integrate that as well.
Ty Johnson got a lot of looks last week. I'm just trying to. He was really good last week, and they had the
game. It was more at the end of the game. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and like he's that third down back sometimes, and that's about it. But I think again, it showed the success they can have with both guys, and maybe they start to integrate that into their offense.
So he had where are we here? He had 9 touches last week. Right. Which not great, but it was what he did with them. Like he had 5 catches for 79 yards and a touchdown. Sure. That makes a big difference in your fantasy week. But but
especially on a short week this week, but even to not burn out Michael Carter, like you're not really in this race. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like maybe just space it out and try and build for the future where you develop a bit of a two running back system like they do, like they have in Cleveland or somewhere else.
Well, other teams have made it work, and by the way,
have had success.
And by the way, the Bengals, what the bleep was that? Like, not for anything, but like they cost me a lot of money on a parlay.
Yeah.
Those pricks. Anyway.
We're not talking about it. Knock that out. All my survivors now. Thanks.
We're done there. Okay, now we're going to move
on
to...
I got another rant to go on at the end of this. Maybe in the not so 2-minute drill. I got something.
Okay. All right. That's fine.
Speaking of running backs, going on the edge of all these running backs.
Yes, the Titans. So Derrick Henry goes down. He's out for probably the rest of the regular season. And now there's a huge void because we know that the Titans love running the ball. They loved using Derrick Henry. But the problem is that it doesn't matter who you bring in. It's not going to be Derrick Henry. So next man up looks like Adrian Peterson, who's going to get a lot of the early down work. But I'm not looking at Adrian Peterson. I put in no bids for Adrian Peterson anywhere on the waiver wire. And all of them went to Jeremy McNichols.
Either did I, Maddie, but the one thing that's like kind of had me second guessing now is that like you said about marketing, right? Adrian Peterson, obviously he couldn't even get a job before.
Didn't get a job until this.
Nobody. But in terms of similar like downhill runners, like he was Derrick Henry before Derrick Henry existed. Like Derrick Henry's like,
I know,
like a bigger version of Derrick Henry. So if there could be success in this system, like McNichols is a way smaller guy, like fitting into this offense and just having Adrian Peterson pound the ball. I'm starting to worry that maybe should have put some bids in, and maybe he will be something in this offense. Well, we see that he's willing to take a workload even at this like extended part of his career. It's crazy. I don't know. I was just kind of thinking about him. Like he's a big back, kind of similar. Like I don't know. It's interesting to me to see how that works out. I mean, they didn't even work out anybody else. Like it was just all on board with Adrian Peterson and bringing him in to replace Derrick Henry.
Or is it all on board because they have faith in Jeremy McNichols? So McNichols only has 7 carries this year.
Right.
Because when you play behind you play behind Derrick Henry,
you're not
touching the ball.
But when he does get the ball, he looks pretty good. Like he had that one game where at the end, I think Derrick Henry left and he was getting the ball consistently at the end, even last year. And he did do things with those opportunities. So
he had a 12 target game this year.
Yeah.
That's not nothing. So I obviously McNichols for me is the better PPR option. I think Adrian Peterson's probably a bye week filler at this point until I see more.
I'm more curious. I'm not making a decision. I just want to watch and see how this plays out. And at this point, like you got AJ Brown on fire, right? Tannehill's got to step up. Maybe he gets other guys involved in the passing game, but like right now, you can't go away from AJ Brown. Like it might mean more targets for him. Like he's just on fire. He's on an absolute tear.
So McNichols, and I read this somewhere, that he is second in fantasy points per touch among running backs.
Wow.
That's good. So he's 15th most in RB targets, tied for 14th in RB catches and 12th in RB receiving yards.
Wow.
So there is room to grow in this offense, because here's the other thing that people will forget. Derrick Henry, when you have him in your lineup, grinds the clock. You run the ball like that, and he grinds time off. He grinds the opposing defenses.
And that might have that guy. That might be the position I could see him giving to Adrian Peterson, just to try and grind and wear some of the clock down. But when they need a play, they give that more to McNichols, right? Like,
but is Adrian Peterson going to grind defenses for over 5 yards a carry?
No, obviously.
And that's the key here, because the more that you grind defenses and you get those first downs, and you're not getting them on huge chunk plays.
His body is fresh this year. He hasn't been playing,
but he's old. He's old. He's just too old.
He's got old man strength, maybe. Who knows?
I guess. So, and that's where I think that Jeremy McNichols can thrive, is because they're going to have to get a little creative with this offense, and they may have to throw the ball to running backs more. I think that this is a great spot for him, because Mike Vrabel said it. The offense isn't going to change. They're still going to run the ball. So I just don't see where Adrian Peterson's carrying the ball 20 plus times a week. I just can't. Call me crazy.
For sure.
But I mean, it just doesn't work for me. So in standard, I mean, probably Adrian Peterson, but I think that Jeremy McNichols has some league winning ability here. A guy that, it's one of those
and guys it's for the rest of the season. So why not? Right.
Exactly.
Like if there's success there, or, given any other injury that they'd be in trouble, they'll have to lean on him.
If he's getting 4 or 5 targets a week and he's carrying the ball, so let's say it's 5. Let's say he catches 3 to 4 balls a week. Call it 4. So 4 catches a week, and he's getting 10 carries at 14 touches a week, and he's second in fantasy points per touch. That's pretty good. I'll take that. That's league winner for a waiver pickup, right? Sure. So I'm all in on the Jeremy McNichols train. Sign me up. Let's get this train rolling. Okay, speaking of trains rolling, these 2 trains don't roll. They don't play. They don't do anything.
Well, they roll, but they have a lot of stops in between.
Yes. Okay, that's a good way to put it. Who do you trust more rest of the season? Christian McCaffrey or Saquon Barkley? So this is who do you trust that's going to get the workload? Who do you trust that's going to stay healthy? I had these guys finishing 1-2 this year in fantasy scoring, and that ain't happening.
Yeah. No
so
kidding.
who do you trust more at this point?
See, I'm a little bit hesitant, especially as they get going here. I think they'll take it easy on both guys with the injuries. Like, you don't ever want to over push a hamstring with McCaffrey, and a foot is, I mean, who knows what's going on with Saquon and his injury history.
Yeah.
For me, though, especially losing Sam Darnold, and who knows, like, see when he comes back. And that offense, like, yeah, I'd go with McCaffrey. I'd look to have him more involved, and just with some of the ability. Some of the Giants, although they can't all stay on the field and be healthy at the same time, but they got some receivers there who can be targets. So I mean, and yeah, McCaffrey is just his ability to do everything. I'd have to lean McCaffrey. Where are you at, Matt?
I lean.
It's a tough one. This is a tough one.
Yeah, I want to say that it's Barkley, because I did have Barkley finishing higher in fantasy scoring this year than McCaffrey. Maybe that was a little hot take. Probably was. But I look at what Chuba Hubbard's done in the interim since McCaffrey's not there.
I was going to say that, yeah. I agree with you.
And so that's where I'm a little hesitant. Devontae Booker has been decent, and the Giants have actually been able to run the ball pretty well. Mm-hmm. So I'm just looking at who I think can stay healthier at this point, and it's probably McCaffrey. But hamstring injuries are so tough.
That's what I mean. You got to be careful.
So
with those, for sure.
Although,
do you trust Saquon's foot to stay okay for the rest of the year? Like, I don't either.
Jeff, here's the worst part. You know this. In our work league, I have both of them.
Right.
I have both of them, and I'm needing them to get back into the lineup so that I can make the playoffs.
Right.
Because if I make the playoffs with those two guys healthy, I can probably win, because the rest of my team is pretty good. But if they don't, I'm screwed. So I think that it's Barkley. I think it's Barkley, because I think that the Giants offense has, even though it's been somewhat bad, it's been fairly consistent the whole season. Whereas the Panthers offense was great the first 3 weeks, and then it disappeared once CMC disappeared. So sure. I think it's Barkley, because I do.
But that's why, hamstring. To me, CMC, he's the difference maker in that offense. They're going to have to rely on him if they want to go anywhere. Now, whether or not they can stay competitive for the rest of the season, we will see. But I mean, until then, where you don't want to put too much stress on it. But I agree with you. What Chuba's shown, I think maybe they give him a little bit more workload than they originally anticipated this season. But yeah, that's a really tough toss-up for me, Matty. And again, like, counting on either guy to really stay healthy for the rest of the season, it might come down to whoever can. They get you the better numbers rest of the season. So I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get on to the not so 2-minute drill. Do you want to do your rant now, or do you want to do
sure.
it
Coming off the running back things. Okay. Let me ask you something. Let's go. Let's do this. Let's talk about Kenneth Gainwell and the Philadelphia Eagles.
What a disaster.
Dude, you said it before, like, sometimes fantasy comes down to coaching and how they use it. Explain to me how everyone was hyping up and this guy got promoted at the risk of, unfortunately, at the injury of Miles Sanders, yet at the exact same time somehow got demoted, and almost every touchdown they scored last week went to another running back. Like the Jordan Howard and who am I forgetting?
Boston Scott. They both had
Boston
two
Scott
each.
Had 2 touchdowns each, and they didn't even use Kenneth Gainwell, who has looked good in the opportunities he's gotten. And like, no sign of this until like right when the game started. Like, when did this happen? And they didn't even use him. I think he had under 10 touches, I believe, until the third quarter. Like, it was insane. When the game was out of reach.
Yeah.
It's like 41-0. And then they started giving him the ball. Like, what happened there? This is a rookie that I saw some potential in. I think he's looked good on the field. And then all of a sudden, like, talk about coaching, dominating your fantasy thing. I know a lot of places I looked last week had him as the number 1 waiver pickup. And then that happens. He went from getting that promotion to the number 1 guy to falling to the 3rd guy, like, without even hitting the field. Like, that was ridiculous. Okay, that's it. I'm done.
No, but it's a good point that you make, because I was stunned at the usage.
Without a doubt. How could you not? Anybody who said they saw that coming, ridiculous, like crazy. Like, Boston Scott's been there all year, and some people had him pegged to maybe have a role in this offense, and he didn't all year. And then all of a sudden he's there, he scores 2 touchdowns, like, gets the majority of touches. It's insane.
It doesn't make sense, because Gainwell was the guy who was getting touches
with Miles Sanders. Yeah. And some games more than Miles Sanders. Like, here's the opportunity. And like part of me wants to see what happens this week. I started questioning, is it just because it was Detroit? They wanted to see what they had in the other two guys and it worked. So why not get it and save Gainwell for like maybe some tougher, I don't know. Like it just didn't make sense to me.
You know what you have in Jordan Howard. He was on your practice squad.
But he got 2 touchdowns, man.
I know.
Don't tell me Kenneth Gainwell couldn't have got those touchdowns. Like, come on, man.
He could have.
Come on, man.
All right,
I'm done. I'm calmer now.
All right, let's talk about a couple. Since we're on the running backs, let's talk about another one. David Montgomery is on track to play Monday against Pittsburgh. So he's coming off the knee issue. Do you trust Khalil Herbert? We had this conversation last week, and I said until we see that David Montgomery is getting a full workload, like I'm probably starting Khalil Herbert this week.
And I do believe, I don't know if you got their schedule there, but I do believe their bye is after this week. So part of me thinks if he does play or addresses, maybe it's just to see how he feels, get him a little bit integrated into this game, but then give him the bye week to fully recover and come back at full workload.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what I would watch out for, but who knows? Again, coaching, and it's a Giants, it's Matt Nagy. And Justin Fields looked good last week. Finally showed some brilliance. Like
all it took was Matt Nagy to be on the
let him go. Yeah, no kidding.
What a surprise. All right, this one is a very interesting one. So Tyrod Taylor will start for the Texans this week. Davis Mills was actually pretty decent last week.
Finally.
So Tyrod was really good the first 2 weeks of the season, like shockingly good. And they get the Dolphins.
They were competitive.
Yeah, they get the Dolphins this week. I actually think, don't tell anybody. I think the Texans are going to beat the Dolphins this week.
Wow.
I actually had that before I found out that Tyrod was starting. So would you be comfortable if you're in a pinch? Like, okay, so for example, me, I am playing in our work league and I have A-Rod on the COVID list and I picked up Taysom Hill. Would you, if you're me, would you be comfortable in starting Tyrod Taylor against Miami this week?
Yeah, I'd be comfortable starting him. I would. If he's starting, yes, I do. I think he always finds ways to pull out things. He's not scared to scramble. Sometimes they'll even run them in. You got Brandon Cooks, who's like mad at the team. So I think he'll be looking to go on a bit of a tear now, and he'll ask Tyrod to get him the ball. Yeah, I'd feel comfortable starting Tyrod Taylor.
Are you giving Brandon Cooks a bump with Tyrod back? Because he was really good. That was the only guy it seemed like.
But he's the only guy. Again, he's their only real guy. So I mean,
I feel bad for Brandon Cooks. He's going to put up 1,000 yards again on a really bad team, and it's like nobody notices. It's unbelievable. It really is. Like, he is one of the more fascinating stories in fantasy football every single year, and he's constantly underdrafted.
Well, for sure. And I think that's just more to do with his team, without a doubt. What about you? So are you still going to go with Hill over Tyrod?
If Hill's playing, I'm going with
Tyrod?
Yeah,
that's almost a tongue twister.
Yeah, if Taysom is in, I'm playing Taysom Hill. If he's not, I'm going to rush to the waiver wire be free agent, but I'm going to grab Tyrod Taylor, and I'm comfortable starting him in that spot. I'm comfortable starting
Maddie from getting Tyrod.
Yeah, I'm comfortable starting Tua in that spot as well as a fill-in. So
yeah, for sure.
I mean, I need a win, so I'm probably going to go with Tyrod. And you are going to go pick him up just to be a dick.
Or anybody. Who are you playing this week? If they watch this, watch out.
They're not watching. I don't even know who I'm playing this week. I can't remember. But we'll see. That's going to do it for us. Episode 10 of the Front Four Fantasy Football Podcast. Subscribe, YouTube, subscribe, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, Podbean, blah, 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 blah. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.